What up, YouTube? It's your boy Belton here. Just finished quite an epic stream. Actually made a couple mirrors today and decided to work on a little project that I thought would be interesting for you guys. And that is making a perfect Crucible tree, specifically one with Rampage and on everyone's ever popular and most favorite, the physical bow. So you can see here, I have a 100% perfect tree. We've got the tornado with tornado shot, Rampage, 15% physical explicits, 30% attack speed, and the tier 1 flat fizz. And not only that, we have two of them. So we are able to make one fully fresh, 6 socket, 6 link, 30 quality it. I should have probably put 6 white, but I didn't. I missed the last 3 harvests on that. But nonetheless, we've got 2 perfect bows here. So the purpose of this video is going to be to show you guys how I did that. It actually took me from start to finish 4.5 hours, starting completely from scratch, doing it by myself to make this. The total cost was about 113 divines. There were ways that I could have definitely done that cheaper. For example, I tend to like to make imprints of things in batches just so I don't have to go back to my menagerie simply because I'm lazy. And you can see there I have like 10 extra imprints. So if I just throw them one at a time, you know, it could mitigate that cost down to about 90 divs. These are selling now for a perfect tree like this. You're looking at the cheapest one that is for sale right now is 165 divines. However, that one does not have any quality, it does not have a 6 socket, it does not have any 6 links, and it does not have any white sockets. So conservatively 170 to 170 divines for each one of these. So a total of 350 divs, just under 1 mirror, let's say roughly. But yeah, we'll say about 340 on the low end, 350 divines there. Again, we spent 113, could have had that as low as 93 if I just stopped on the imprints. So what that ended up being was about roughly a 238 divine profit, which works out to be about 53 divs an hour. Now, I understand for the most part, people are probably not going to have the starting capital to do these for profit, but in case you were curious, I know people always want to know the numbers behind things, and that's what they were. And as I mentioned, it took me 4.5 hours, so if you were to look at that on a per hour basis, 53 divines an hour of profit, and that's not including any map drops, remnants, leftover things, other bows that we have, etc. Quick breakdown on whether those costs lay. The Rampage non-split base was 40 divines. We spent 10 divines on the more likely to primordial remnants or the no downgrade remnants. 15 divines on other bow bases with random, the necessary trees or at least points that we needed from those trees. 1 divine to 6 socket and 6 link, 1 divine to 30 quality it, 5 divines on Fenimal Plagued Arachnids, which are the split beast, and 40 divines on Krachik Chimeras, which is the imprint beast. And as I mentioned, we had about 10 left over, so that could have been lowered down to 20. Sale price, as I mentioned, cheapest one's 160, but given the benefits ours has, it more likely to be 170, 175. It's also very likely these will go up in price as time goes by. So there's the math behind the numbers I was saying. And now, just because I know people like shorter videos, I'll explain to you guys how we got that done here. So the first thing that obviously we did, as I mentioned there, we're going to buy a clean Rampage base. So when I say clean, I mean one that is not split, right? And the reason we want to do that is so that we can split it at the end. If you decide to buy a Rampage base that is split, technically you can move it onto another base. And then still have it so it's splittable thereafter. So if you were to put the Rampage on the top of the Crucible tree, however, you're obviously risking the Rampage in that scenario, right? If it doesn't decide to take it and it's never fully 100%, you're going to be losing about 20 divs. The reason, aside from the fact that Fizzbos are very popular, the reason why I wanted to do this and the impetus for doing this was that if you were to look on the trade site under Rampage, I'll actually just do this real quick with you guys here. You can see that there are, last time I looked, there were roughly, I think there were 91. All right, well, more people online now. 123 total items that have Rampage on them. Okay. And if we look up bows, those are 94. So we're talking over 75% of them of all items are that have Rampage are on bows, which means we can not recombinate them, we can crucible them. The reason for this is just bows are more popular, people are doing it more often. There's nothing innately that makes Rampage more common on bows. It's just simply by virtue of the fact that people are taking them to the crucible trees more often. Now, if you're to look at any other weapon, it's basically about a mirror to get Rampage on any other weapon base, but as I mentioned, they're quite cheap there. Now, you can see they're about 20 divines, but we're going to notice that this is split, split, split. So we'll see if there's still any available here. Fractured, split, split. So we're going to look for no. Yeah, so exactly the same price. I paid 40 divines. So it's twice the cost, aside from the fact that it allows you to put that as the bottom one now, right? And that's where we want to start from, at least in the method I used, because that means that we get to split it at the end. And keep in mind, again, when you get to split this at the end, you get to keep the quality of the weapon, the sockets, the colors of those sockets, the links, and whatever Crucible tree you have, right? So given the fact that we're going to put a significant amount of investment in this, by having a base that is already split, you're cutting your profit or your amount of bases simply in half. So I highly recommend, if you're going to approach this, whether it's, again, you don't have to be doing a Fizbo. What I'm going to say to you, show you guys here, you could do with any other base, just adjust the mods accordingly. But I highly recommend starting off with getting a Rampage mod on a non-split base. Shush. Now, after you have that non-split base, we're going to pop over here. So you get that non-split base, and again, you want to have this so it is the bottom on the Crucible tree. The top one is the one that gets destroyed into the bottom one being the one that is kept. Now, you want to have that as a magic. After you get the Rampage, make sure it's a magic item so you can imprint it. Obviously, imprints are quite expensive, but Rampage being 40 divs, certainly worth imprinting. Now, what you want to look for too, if you do have the choice, you're going to want to get a Rampage that is ideally in either this location here or this location here. It will always be in the 4th row. Now, the reason for this, in case you guys were unaware, and I will use this little fill-in thing here so you guys can see. I'll mark it with orange. So if you have Rampage here, and you want to add, let's say, Tornado Shot as the next mod, if you get a tree where the Tornado Shot is up here or down here, right? Those are not actually going... If Tornado Shot is recombinated or crucibled, or sorry, forged, and added with a Rampage, that is exactly where that location will be. And so it's never going to be possible for those to connect. So, oops, Control Z, Control Z. So the reason why you want to have your Rampage here or here is because that gives you 3 options in terms of location for your Tornado Shot, right? Now, if you were to have your Rampage up here, right, that would mean that the only place you could have is right there, right? 1 or 2. So it just gives you more options. At the end of the day, it's not the end of the world if you do have it there. It just opens up the possibilities for the trees you can have thereafter. So after you have that Rampage bow, again, first step, you're gonna get it. You're gonna make it magic and imprint it. It's always gonna be in the 4th mod there. The next thing we're gonna want to do is go ahead and we're gonna get Tornado Shot on, Tornado on Tornado Shot use. So that is gonna be the 5th passive always. For this one, it's very easy to make sure that you get it in one of these 3. So just make sure it's on one of those locations. At this point, all we're going to do is be using Tornado Shot on use, and we're going to put that as the top mod, and we're going to Crucible that onto Rampage until the 2 of them hit. You don't really need anything special at this point. You don't really need to allocate you don't need to allocate Tornado Shot or Rampage. You can if you want to. It does improve the odds, but it's pretty easy to get them. Now, one of the things that actually is worth mentioning too, though, if you find a tree like this, so you'll notice that some of them don't actually have a 5th row. Let's see if I have any of them right here. 1, 2, yeah. So this one, for example, right? This has only got 1, 2, 3, 4 rows, right? If we have a tree like this, where we get our Rampage on a bow like this, where the Rampage is on the 4th mod, and so you get it, and let's say the tree looks like this, and where's the little fill guy? So this is Rampage, right? So that's your bottom one that you've imprinted. If you then get a tree where you have Tornado Shot mod, and it's up here, and it's got 5 nodes like this, right? If you actually just decide to keep that, or you could even you can allocate it if you'd like to, but it does put the Rampage somewhat in flux. But if you do have a tree that is like this and it's allocated, it's 100% for the fifth mod to stay. So because there's no competition, right? The Rampage mod that you were imprinting it on, if you have the mod allocated and there is nothing in that column, it will keep that mod, which is going to be important later on. But again, it's not really necessary at this point. And the problem with this is that you're going to have to compete with the Rampage. Now you can allocate as well. So if we have Rampage in that in column number 4 here, shoot. If we had Rampage in column number 4, the fuck? Oh. Right. And we could decide on the tornado shot to allocate it right there. And when we recombine them, it would go for a 50-50 in terms of which one to keep. But you can also put it on the same mod there. And in effect, it does the same thing. However, it really is not that difficult. And for the most part, at that point, I would just recommend using, again, just buying, making sure that your tornado mod is connected nearby your Rampage. You don't need to allocate them, and eventually you'll have Rampage and Tornado Shot. So once you have that done, let's say it allocated up there. So you've now got your bow, which will have the mod 4 and mod 5 done, right? So we'll do a little check mark here. We've got mod 4 done, check, and mod 5 done. Oh, look at that fucking MS Paint skills. Now we want to get mod 3, 2, and 1. At this point, there's a little bit of personal preference. What I highly recommend doing is focusing on getting these two together because it will be significantly cheaper, right? If you're to look at just bows that have just these two, you can find them for like a 1 divine to 2 divines. However, if you look for one that has all 3 of these, they're going to be like 17 or 18 divs. This was the case when I looked. Obviously, the market's going to change, but take a look. You can also just go ahead and buy one that just has this if you like, and you can focus on the third step as a 2 mod one like that. For my personal preference, I had one that was like this. So I got the 2 of these together. It was about 1 or 2 divs. Always, if you have the option to, try to look for it where it's clean, so non-split, or no. So when I say clean, I mean not split, not influenced, and not fractured, and non-synthesized, because that allows you to split yourself. So a split beast is about 70 chaos. If anything that you're spending bow base wise, especially if it's quite a good tree, you're gonna want to obviously expedite or save some currency. As well, it just makes things a little bit easier, especially if they're allocated in good spots. And similar to the first step, as I mentioned, when you're looking specifically for your third mod here, right? Because we've decided we've got our tree laid out as such, the only place that mod 3 can be here is one of these two. Okay, so if mod 3 is down here, it won't, like, even if it does allocate, it won't be able to connect. So keep in mind, again, that the location of the mods as you progressively put them on is important. So if it was like this, again, make sure that you are focusing here. And similarly with the mod 2, if it's up there, right, and your mod 2, sorry, motherfucker. If mod 2 is, or if mod 3 is right here, it can be either one of these, right? Both of those would be an option. However, if mod 3 was up there, you'd have to make sure that your mod 2 was down here and not the case where it was over here, right? Because sometimes, especially when you're looking up weapons or crucible trees that are unallocated, it will often show you it'll often show you ones where they are kind of mixed off like that. So since, again, we're boxing these two together here, just be conscientious that the tree can connect with the 2 you're looking for. Now, assuming you've covered your base there, we're going to get the 30% attack speed and the phys explicit. We're then going to, oops, sorry, I should probably turn that off. What the fuck just happened? Okay. We're then going to split it if it's possible. And again, at every stage of this, we're going to imprint our base spine bow, and we've now got Rampage and Tornado Shot and use on it. And then we're going to go back to the Crucible tree. And at this point, At this point, again, you are probably going to want to have the 30% attack speed and the 15% explicit. You're going to want to have those allocated as well. Sorry, you're going to have one of those allocated before you split the tree. The reason for that being it's far more likely to keep them. The Rampage and Tornado Shot in use, not as necessary. And because if you have those allocated, you're going to have to also fill out, right? So if you had Rampage and TS allocated, you're going to also have to have a mod 1, 2, and 3 in terms of those columns. And those are going to compete with these ones. Now, ideally, if you have these two filled out, so since I have that orange, let's say it was, this is going to represent the second bow. If we have it there, and then we'd have to pick number 1, but in that case, number 1 is going to be, it's not going to be related to the bow at all. If we have these 3 allocated, right, it's going to have a much higher chance of keeping the ones that you have or you put on yourself there. And especially if you can find one where mod 3 and mod 2 do not have anything that competes in these areas. So either they stop after 3 mods, or if they do have 4, they don't have an allocation here or an allocation there. If it does put a mod on. So for example, let's see if I have one that's, oh, perfect, right? So here we've got 1, 2, and 3. So you can see in the 4th column here, it's got 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, but then on the 4th column, it goes 1 blank mod blank, right? So if we were to look here, it would be 1 blank mod blank. So if we can recombine, if we can find a 15% and a 30% that has a tree like that, in that situation, if it does pick the 4th and 5th mod, it'll guarantee Tornado Shot or Rampage right there, and then Tornado Shot right there, because there's nothing in competition with it. So in that is a situation where you might want to consider allocating them, because if it's allocated and there's no competing mod, again, it's a 100% chance. However, if you do decide to go that route, again, these mods are going to be contested in terms of 1, 2, and 3. So you can make that decision as you choose. With respect to how you choose to go about that, if you're going to put one where you have the tree guaranteed, and I would suggest doing this maybe after you have 3 mods, there are a couple of the remnants that are important. For the first few, you can just, if it's ever a case where you're just putting 2 together, you can use the lower tier remnant. However, once you get 3 of them together, so after this set phase here, I recommend at least getting the one where it says, you see the second mod here, Crucible passives on forged items cannot have tiers downgraded. The reason for that being, if you if you forge together the Rampage and Tornado Shot in use, the reason it doesn't matter there is because they don't have any tiers to them. However, Fizz Explicit can be downgraded to 10%, and 30% attack speed can be downgraded to 27%, and Flat Fizz can be downgraded from 11 to 26 to, I actually don't know what the next tier down is, but it's probably like 9 to 23 or something. So we don't want that to happen. As well, the cannot be downgraded. These are only 0.7 divs each, so it's not a huge investment. However, when we get to the later phases, there's also a remnant that has more likely to keep mods allocated on tree. Specifically, we're going to be doing that when we go for our 5th mod, and that one actually costs 4 divines each. So we want to be somewhat sparing with that. So now that we have we've got our Rampage and Tornado Shot use, Magic Bow, which we've imprinted, and we've got our next bow, which we've allocated points 1, 2, and 3. Points 2 and 3 being attack speed and Fizz Explicit. And we've split that base. We're now going to forge it together. And what do you know? We ended up getting it. And let's say it decided to go, like that, right? So we've got a tree now where we've got Tornado Shot and skill use, Rampage, Fizz Explicit, 30% attack speed. Fantastic. The only one we're missing now is Fizz. So, woo! So what we want to do here, and this is where we're going to buy this expensive remnant. And this is actually the position I just found myself in. And I can show you because it makes a substantial difference. Now, at first I was doing it. So you see here, this is 11 to 26, same thing as this one here, right? We both of these have tier 1 Fizz. However, this tree right here and this tree right here have substantially different courses of outcome. So you can see this one has the first column full, second column full, third column full, and then this one is half full. Now, if you look at this one, it's 1, 2, it's got the 1 and the 2, but on the third column, it's missing here. And on the fourth column, it's only got the 1 down here. Now, if we look at where our slots are allocated, this is missing on that previous bow. This is missing on that previous bow, and this is missing on that previous bow, right? So if we fully allocate, which we did at this point, so I believe when I was doing it, this was chaos damage, right? So we see that we had our tree like that. We were going to fully allocate that tree 100%. Make sure you put in max experience and allocate all those nodes, right? So we're going to have a tree that's now 5 full. And then what we're going to do is we're going to look for a one that has a base tier like this, so 11 to 26. And then what we're going to be looking for is ones where we don't have to compete. So it's all pretty much always going to have a second one. The third one, not necessarily. But again, as I mentioned, if you're recombinate or if you're forging together and you have your bottom tree with the mods allocated, and that the tree that you are trying to forge onto is missing slots in that area, it is a 100% guarantee that your chosen, the one that you have allocated, will take up that space. So in this case here, it doesn't. Oh, sorry, not wasn't that one. In this case here, right? This is going to be a 50-50, so it's going to choose between the chaos damage that was on my current bow and this 11. Now, this one, I could have allocated this because this is just a lower tier, but because I chose not to allocate it, it's about it'll be a 70% chance for it to choose the allocated node, which is the one that already exists there. And then for the third one, because this is completely empty, and because that one is allocated on this, that's 100%. That's 100%, and that's 100%, because you'll note, again, empty, empty, empty. And because they are allocated on this tree, these three are fully guaranteed. Now, at first, I was being a little bit dumb and just kind of rash, and I was just sort of throwing a couple of these at them. And then I realized this, which is, again, why I could have actually mitigated the cost significantly on doing this. Because when I do it on this one, right, it's going to have a 50-50 here, and then a 70% chance here, and then a 70% chance here, and then it has the last two guaranteed. Right, so 70%, that's 49, and then a 50, that's a 24.5% chance of success. Whereas on this one, it's a 50-50, and then a 70%, so 35. So 35 versus a 44. Or sorry, 35 versus a, sorry, I can't remember what I said in the prior one. Was it 70-70, which is 49, and then a 50, 24. 35 versus 24, 11%. It's almost, what, 45% better chance, right, to have a tree in that situation here. I don't actually know if it's possible to have one that has no... Is it possible to have one that doesn't have a second allocated node? I mean, if it is, fantastic, but being realistic, you're probably always going to have at least the 2 nodes. But you'll note, again, with a 35% chance to pass, that's only going to take you 3 on average. And since we're able to split these, right, you know, you really only have to buy 1 bow base, or two bow bases at most, in most cases. Yeah, because that would give you 4 recombinations. So when I was trying it on this level, I did it again a couple times. I kept failing. And then I realized, again, when you have the nodes allocated there, it becomes a 100% guarantee for the nodes that we have in that area. So in this situation here, I'll mark these off with yellow just to show you. So these 2 didn't exist there, and nor did node 3. All right, so this one... Or sorry, here we'll put this. The green ones will represent 100%. The yellow will represent a 70%, and the red would be a 50-50. So if you can get it where it's that case, I'm not entirely sure if it's possible to get one that doesn't have a second node allocated. But if you could, it would only be a 50-50. But again, when you have it like that and you do have it allocated on your bottom tree, it is 70%. So it's not unlikely to happen, and you're in pretty good shape regardless. From that case, though, again, you've already got the 4 nodes allocated. You're imprinting at every new phase here, and so once you find an appropriate tree, so right here again, the substantial difference being that, again, this one has less contestation than this one does. This is actually not a bad one either, because it does have 4 and 5 open, but it does have the 3 taken, right? If you were to have one that had, you know, tree, it had 1, 2, 3, 4, and God forbid even 5 in contest, that would be 70 times 70, 70% times 70% times 70% times 70% times 50%. So what would that be? I'm pretty good at mental math, but I'm going to just pull a calculator on this one. 0.7 times 0.7 times 0.7 times 0.7 times 0.5. You're looking at 12% as opposed. So that would take you eight and a half recombinations instead of, or sorry, I have trouble not saying recombination. It'd take you 8.5 forging as opposed to the 3 average that we had otherwise. Now, it's very important, again, as I mentioned, to have the tree allocated. And when you do get that, especially on this last step here, very important. Oh, fuck me. I really wanted to buy that Columbus. Sorry, not related to the video. It is important that you get, so we're going to be looking at Tilda, sorry guys, Tilda Crucible, more likely. So this one right here, Crucible passives are more likely to be retained when forging. I also recommend when you buy these to put a not filter on, which prevents mods from showing up, and then do Crucible corrupted, and make sure, because this will make it so that it contains a furnace that adds a Crucible. Oh no, that's not the right one. Because trust me, sorry. I don't know why I'm having such trouble finding this corrupted. Okay, I don't know why I can't find the exact. Anyways, there's a mod that can show up on these that is forged. Oh, maybe that's what I'm looking up for. Sorry, I'll try this one last little search word here. Forged. There we go. Forged items are corrupted with an implicit. You do not want to have this show up. And a lot of the time, the cheapest ones that are there for sale are going to be... No way. Dude, this is like the... What the fuck? These are like 8. Holy shit. Sorry to interrupt the video for this, but these are like 5 divine. But these are like 5 divine remnants here, like straight up. Guys, you don't need to be invited. Throw in the guild stash. Guild stash. Guild stash. I'll get back to you in a second. How much is this? 160. That's 220. 320. Okay. There you go. Perfect. Sorry to interrupt the video like that. If you take a look here. These are at a bare minimum 5 divines each, and we just got 2 of them for 160 chaos. So 10 divines, what is that, for 1.2. So we just made 9 divines on that. But here, actually, this is good because for the purposes of this video, these are really important to show. So this is the one that we're going to be looking for the last step for sure, and potentially for the second last step as well, depending if you decide to get 3 and 2 or just 3 and then 2 and 1, depending on how you add them. But the node that we're looking at here is Crucible passives on, Crucible passive skills are more likely to be retained when forging. And as well, the other one that we were talking about is Crucible passive skills on forged items cannot have their tiers downgraded. These are the important ones to look out for, but very, very important. Crucible passive skills are more likely to be retained. You definitely want to have that when you are in this last phase that I was mentioning, because that makes it so that the ones that you have allocated are going to be kept, I believe, 100%. and it just makes them more probable with respect to the others. Another thing that you can do as well, if you're unaware of this, at any point in certain phases, if the first node is not one that you want to keep, to a point that it might be detrimental. This is more so going to be the case when if you are trying to just create your own bow for like, you know, you want to get tier 1, 2, and 3 together, let's say, right? So you're trying to make that yourself rather than buying, you know, rather than going and buying one that is, you know, the row 1, row 2, row 3. If you're trying to make it yourself and you have competing ones, it's possible to remove the first node. Okay, so like let's say you had a bow. You had one bow that had the desired tier 3 mod or row 3 mod, right? So you had the explicit, and then you had one that had flat fizz and attack speed, right? So if you had the fizz explicit one and it's got, let's say, chaos damage as its row 1, you can go into a map, go to the Crucible thing, and then click the 15% explicit bow or whatever thing it is, and you can then use a scouring orb to remove the first node. Right, so that way the flat fizz isn't going to have to compete against the first node on that one. So you're not going to allocate obviously the fizz explicit, but you're going to have tier 1 and tier 2, or row 1 and row 2 allocated, and then row 3 you're just going to try and attach it after. But that's another way that's important. For myself personally, I thought that they were cheap enough that I didn't necessitate me buying. It didn't necessitate me buying the or sorry, making them myself, because I was able to just buy them. But yeah, so again, so step 1, we're going to get the Rampage. Step 2, we're going to add Tornado Shot in use. Step 3, we're going to add Fizz Explicit and 30% attack speed. If you would like, you can also just choose to add the Fizz Explicit, and then you can potentially go for 30% attack speed and Flat Fizz as the 4th step. This is my preference. It was the way that I did it. And again, it worked very quickly. And then we're going to look for a tree. Shush. Don't message me when I'm doing videos. When you're doing this last step here, guys, you're gonna look for if you can find one. Again, the most important thing obviously is the node you want, but if you can find one where it does not have competing rows, that is gonna make your job a hell of a lot easier. As I mentioned, about 35%. So with the split, 70% chance, and bada boom, bada bing, you have now got your full tree. The only expensive thing really, guys, is the Rampage in terms of individual cost. The Tornado Shot ones, Tornado Shot on TSUs, they're like, sorry, hope YouTube doesn't demonetize me. They're like 5 chaos, 10 chaos. You don't have to worry about that too much at all. And again, for that first step there, you can use the cheaper remnants. This second step, you're going to be paying, you know, somewhere between half a divine to 2 to 3 divines maybe for these ones. Try to go for one that is not split so you can split it yourself. And again, you defray that cost somewhat by that. And at this phase, I would be using the, you're going to want to look for the, the forged passives cannot be downgraded. Those are about 0.7 divs each. And you want to put that so that neither the Fizz or the IAS gets downgraded. And you're going to want to have as well the one which is going to be a throwaway mod, and your 2 and 3 are going to be allocated on the tree there. Now, the last step, you're going to want to go for that big boy remnant, the one that is 4 divs each, which is the one I just bought there, the more likely to be retained. And then we're going to look for, we're just going to get the one that has the tier 1 Fizz and have as many as our of these spots open as we can. And we're going to fully allocate our tree to have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And so that the only competing mod will be the 50-50 on the first one. And after you're done that, guys, you're going to have your bow fully done on the tree. For profit reasons, what you would then do, make it rare, go ahead and throw fossils via the single recombinators, perfect fossils till you get 30%. Then you're going to 6-socket it, 6-link it. And if you really want to take it to that last step, you would then go and make it 6 white. I just decided to throw a Varici at it. I got 2 whites, and then I had enough cash left over to buy, I think, 3 or 4 augment the harvest where you can add a white socket, and we hit 2 of them there. So I decided to split it at that point. Following that, I just decided to roll some alterations to see which one I would get a T1 mod on first, so I could keep that. And then the other one is the one that I'll throw up for sale there. I do suspect these will go up in price, and I do know a lot of people struggle with these. I know that I did my best here. I know I was probably a little bit, all over the place. this is about as clear as I can get on the topic. If you don't understand Crucible trees that well, you could probably find somebody who is a little bit, less frenetic when he speaks. But this was how the method I used. It was actually rather simple. If I were to attempt this again, I think I could probably get this done in about 2 hours, knowing what I need now step by step, as well as knowing which bows to buy and forge with. But again, even kind of figuring this out as I went, and I was mapping in between, adding trees and, talking to chat, going for smokes, all that kind of stuff. It wasn't exactly like a speed run. And I was able to get that done in 4.5 hours still. If again, knowing what I know now and what I just communicated to you guys, I think 2 hours, 3 hours is a very realistic timeline. This is obviously going to be somewhat contingent on the availability of Rampage mods, but as I mentioned, they take up about 75% of the Rampage market, and there were 90 of them for sale online right now, so I don't think it's going to be too difficult. But nonetheless, all the stuff I was just saying as well can also be cross-applied to other weapons or other trees. Obviously, just adjust accordingly. Now with this one, obviously I've got the names of these mods here, but Rampage is always going to be in row 4. But you could just change the mods that were written in here for whatever mods you're looking for. Oh, yeah. Anyways, there we go. Yeah, so if you want to, you could just take like you can take a screenshot of this on stream right now if you'd like, or on the video. Fuck me. Man, I am not good with computers. I apologize, guys. There you go. And you can just, fill that in as you'd like. Those mods are not the same, but the strategy is the exact same regardless. Again, everything I just mentioned there can be, nitpicked for whatever it is you're looking for. Specifically, if you're starting off with a Rampage as your first point, because naturally that's the most expensive. Anyways, guys, I hope this was helpful. If you have any more specific questions, let me know in the comments. If this is helpful or, any feedback. I actually had kind of a fun time doing this. I spent the first, month and a half of the league almost entirely in the bestiary crafting and things. So it's nice to get out and explore a little bit and to play some other things. Today I had a really nice day. I mentioned this in the past. I make roughly between a mirror and 2 mirrors a day. It's hard for that to translate sometimes because of how much I spend on crafting. But today was one of the days. Now I guess technically we did craft here, but that's pretty low cost for my terms. So in a single day we were able to turn in a mirror, a replica squire, or sorry, a foiled squire, and make 2 of these. Cleared just over 1,000 divines, 800 in actual sales, 850 in actual sales, plus, as I mentioned, about 250 divine profit here. I do suspect that the profitability on this will sustain, and in fact, I think that these will probably go up in price, particularly the remnants and the trees themselves, as the player base goes down and as the material costs go up as well. Towards the end of the league items always seem to skyrocket. So if you do want to get one of these at some point, now's a great time, and don't put it off too long because, league items in particular tend to get quite a bit more expensive as things progress. But that's all I got to say on the topic, guys. Until next time, hope this was helpful. Belton, peace.